Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian. We're back with another Pokemon Unite video. In this video, I was having a conversation with chat in my previous live stream where we ended up talking about what is my thought process in terms of what Pokemon I would choose to pick typically, or would like to be picked essentially, to help better fit a team composition. Someone asked me about this in chat, so I figured make a video about this for anybody who missed the live stream. If you end up enjoying the video though, go ahead and give it a like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell button, all that good jazz. Help boost the YouTube algorithm real quick. I would really appreciate it. Other than that though, I hope you guys learned something and enjoy the video. Quick disclaimer, by the way, a lot of the Pokemon that I use as like my potential picks are just off the top of my head. There can very well be other Pokemon that I have not listed in my potential picks categories that could easily fill in the same roles that are required for the team composition. Just keep that in mind. These are kind of like just off the top of the head suggestions. Is team balance important in solo queue? For example, I've seen a lot of 3-stacker attack teams clap in ranked, and it makes me wonder how necessary it is to fill a team comp. Team balance in solo queue is necessary to a degree. Okay. Hey guys, Brian from the future here, post edit. One thing that I would like to add to this is that in my personal opinion, team compositions don't really matter as much in lower elo games. So this would be any beginner ranks, great ranks, and even probably expert ranks. In my personal opinion, I would argue that team compositions don't start to have importance until around the veteran, arguably high veteran area and higher, and don't actually start to really matter until masters. That's just my own personal opinion though, take it how you will. One thing I would like to add though, which might sound a little contradictory to what I just said, is that I would much rather have you guys play the Pokemon that you are best at playing, even if it happens to be what some might be considered a suboptimal pick in any given team comp. Okay, just because of the fact that you are more likely to succeed at a Pokemon that you're good with, even if it might be suboptimal on paper in terms of team composition. And because of this is typically why it's usually recommended that you can at least play at least one Pokemon from each role, just in case you end up needing to flex for whatever reason. A lot of people get this misconception that you have to have like maybe like one of each role on the team, or you have to have at least like one tank, one support, one all-rounder, and maybe 2 attackers. Okay, speedsters are iffy, just because a lot of times you can just replace the speedster for an attacker instead. But more or less, people have this idea that you need to have kind of one of each role, and that is not true at all whatsoever. Don't think of the Pokemon according to their given roles given in game. Think of the Pokemon according to what job are you trying to accomplish with this Pokemon, and is that Pokemon's job necessary for your team? That's the best way to think about it. So like, for example, if we had like I don't know, chat, spit me out a random team. Spit me out 4 random Pokemon and then pretend as if like I'm filling for that 5th role. Just spit out random Pokemon for me. If you happen to be in a lower elo too, go ahead, feel free to give me like common team comps you might see. And I can give you like a few like suggestions using my thought process. Okay, we'll start with the first one. What was it? Robin said for his team, we had Blissey. Dude, everyone's commenting now, so I'm losing track. Blissey, Venusaur, Garchomp, Venusaur. What the fuck's Garchomp? Garchomp, Blastoise, Talonflame. Oh well, I just need 4 Pokemon. Just give me 4 Pokemon games. Oh no, you said Gengar, Venusaur, Blissey, Venusaur, Garchomp, Gengar. Where the fuck's Gengar? Okay, so with this team, okay, most people would assume that we need a defender. All right, you don't need a defender. All right, now due to the nature of this comp, a defender might actually be decent, but the question is, why would you want a defender? It's not a question of do we need a defender because there's no defender role on this team. It's a question of why would I want a defender based on how these Pokemon play. That's the question. Because for example, Garchomp over here plays completely differently compared to, let's say, a Lucario. If I had a Lucario on this team instead of Garchomp, the team like this, the way this team plays is going to be completely different because Lucario has way more mobility that he doesn't really need defending. He doesn't really need teamwork as much to peel for him if things go south. He can kind of get out in a bad situation really quickly and kind of save himself. He doesn't need that help. Okay. Which is partially what a tank's job is supposed to be. Part of a tank's job is to peel for your teammates and to help create situations for your teammates to secure kills, or at least take space for your team to easily secure kills or apply pressure. All right. So Lucario, if we had a Lucario, for instance, because of the fact that Lucario can easily get in and out of a situation, and he does good damage too pretty early game, the entire game, Lucario doesn't really need a tank to help him do his job. Gengar is kind of in that same boat too. He's kind of a one-trick pony. He's usually the jungler. He kind of usually goes on flanks. So you're as the tanker, you're not going to really be protecting your speedster too much, okay? Unless it's a massive team fight, and you kind of, in which case that would be one of the rare exceptions. Venusaur, because he's ranged, if he's positioning correctly, disclaimer. Okay, if he's positioning correctly, he shouldn't need too much peeling either, because he's attacking from range. He's got Solar Beam too. He's kind of a sniper in this game. In which case, Blissey is also going to be staying in the back, just kind of pocketing that one Pokemon, that one teammate in her lane. In which case, you could play a tank in this team comp, but you don't have to. You could very easily. So if you could have a tank, I wouldn't complain to having a tank on the team, okay? But likewise, because your team doesn't need a tank with this combination, for example, you can easily go with something like another attacker. You could easily have another attacker that goes with this comp, like another range attacker. Actually, I think they're all ranged for the attackers, yeah. Something of this nature, okay? I'm probably not Gardevoir for this specific team comp, just because it feels a little slow early game, so I wouldn't have Gardevoir with that, but you could easily go with that. But let's go back to Robin's one, where instead of the Lucario, we actually have the Garchomp. Well, now because we have this Garchomp here, and because Garchomp literally is kind of useless until he evolves, and that's when he actually starts becoming threatening, you can have an argument that Garchomp needs a little protection, in which case then you have an argument that you would need a defender to at least protect the Garchomp, and you would want to go in the same lane as your Garchomp, okay, and protect him and let him level up, okay? Let him get the last hits on wild Pokemon, let him achieve his mission to level up and become a threat to the enemy team. And then you could have an argument to actually have a defender on your team, all right? So then you would actually be more down to this. And with this in mind, I probably wouldn't do Slowbro. I feel like Slowbro is not too great right now, to be honest. But at least one of these three tanks, you could argue to put this on a team. So does that put things into perspective for you guys? I'm thinking more so in terms of how does this team play and what is their job with these individual Pokemon? What is their job within my team comp? I'm ignoring their roles, and I'm more so focusing on how these individual Pokemon play and what their strengths and weaknesses are. So I'm picking Pokemon accordingly to try and fill in those gaps of what they're missing according to what they're likely to be doing. I see a lot of comments, so let me get back to some of this. I'll use some of your other team comps too. So we'll use Hey Listen's team comp, the Crustle, Pikachu, Wiggles, Blastoise next. All right, so let's go to Hey Listen's. Let's use Hey Listen's. Well, actually, who was the next? Yeah, Hey Listen's team comp. Crustle, Pikachu, Wiggles, Blastoise. Crustle, Pikachu. Where the fuck's Wiggles? That's not Wiggles. Wiggles, Blastoise. Okay, so with this team, because of the fact that we have double tank, we have Wigglytuff, who acts as kind of a pseudo tank, but is most people I see use Sing. I rarely ever see Wigglytuffs use Rollout. Personally, I think Rollout is completely underrated. I feel like Rollout is amazing, really good, especially with when you start getting like higher up, you see a lot more CC related comps, and I feel like rollout's just absolutely fucking amazing. Okay, because rollout helps you get out of high CC team comps where like everyone's just spamming CC. Rollout lets you get out of that. Rollout also in the Dreadnought. So if any of you guys watched my how to abuse confusion and barrier Mr. Mime guide video that I have on the channel, which probably many of you probably came from in the first place. If you watched that, you probably saw me explain how Mr. Mime thrives in that Dreadnought area because of all the natural walls that are there that you can kind of like trap people in. And Wigglytuff is good in the bottom lane for that exact same reason, okay? Especially for rollout. You can bounce off the walls for rollout and just become a pinball machine. But that's assuming you pick rollout. But anyways, because we have 2 tanks here and Wiggles, in this team comp, Pikachu is going to be our primary source of damage, okay? Potentially, our tanks will also be sources of damage too, depending on what moveset they pick. And this is going to be one of the situations where it's kind of iffy. My main concern with this team comp is that I have no idea what moves that these 2 tanks are going to pick. Because as of right now, all the tanks except Slowbro, option A, where they can go with a defensive tank build, or option B, where they can go with a more bruiser attack style team build. So like, for example, Crustle has the Shell Smash X Scissors combo where he can just like chase you down from halfway across the map and like just deal crazy amounts of damage. Blastoise has the Rapid Spin move set, which can do bullshit amounts of damage. Okay, these are the bruiser builds, in which case they're almost like attackers in that instance too. If at least one of them goes with the bruiser build, then you could probably get away with having any of the attackers. You could get away with having a second support. Okay. I would argue probably Eldegoss. Yeah, Eldegoss is probably the second support. Maybe Mr. Mime. But I would argue Eldegoss in something like this. Mr. Mime can help if you're good enough with Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime can work too. But most people tend to not be very good with Mr. Mime. So, but if you're good enough, you can make Mr. Mime work in this type of team card too. But I would probably something like this. I think would kind of work. Even an all-rounder, I think would be pretty decent, like Machamp, Lucario, just because of the fact they can kind of fill in according to what these guys pick mid-game. So the big problem here just ends up being what did these guys pick in terms of movesets. But let's just assume that we have no idea what they're gonna pick. Okay, because worst case scenario, both these guys pick defensive movesets, in which case that's a bad sign and your team is going to lack damage output, in which case you really need some sort of secondary source of damage. So you'll probably want an attacker or one of these like all-rounders that can also deal decent damage. Okay, the safer option in this situation, without knowing what your teammates are going to pick in terms of movesets, would probably be an all-rounder. Just because at the very least, you're guaranteed to still be able to do decent damage. You're tanky enough to take a hit in case like they go a bruiser build. Let's say they both go bruiser builds. You have no defensive abilities on your team then. In which case, having the all-rounder to kind of stay alive is also useful. And you still could do decent damage where you kind of fill in like an attacker role at the same time. So the safest options would be the all-rounders. But you can also make attackers work in this situation too, just because of the fact that you do have 2 tanks, so they're also more likely to stay alive longer than everyone else on the team. Wiggly's also in that category too. Her stats are like a tank. People consider Blissey a tank, and I 100% disagree. Blissey is not a tank. She just has the stats of a tank. That is it. She's just survivable, but she's not a tank. Okay. She doesn't have defensive abilities. Unless you're going rollout and you can like stun them a little bit or whatnot, knock them away. She's not a tank. I consider Mr. Mime more of a tank than Wigglytuff. But yeah, that's my thought process for this type of team comp. Let's see. You're kind of in limbo in Veteran 4. Hey, don't worry about it, Robin. I will say that amongst all the ranks, for me, Veteran 4 was my elo hell. Veteran 4 and Ultra 4 were my elo hell. It took me fucking forever to get out of those two classes. Okay, so fingers, team comp was Pikachu, Garchomp, Blastoise, Talonflame. Blastoise versus Talonflame. Okay. So with this type of tier comp, I'm not gonna lie, this team comp worries me. Now, also, it also depends on your rank too. Depending on rank, this might not be that bad. But at least in like higher ranks, Talonflame and Garchomp are a little worrying. But at least having both of them on your team is a little worrying because they're kind of glass cannons. Talonflame's like epitome of a glass cannon and does tons of damage, but is so super fucking squishy. She dies as soon as she's looked at. So my main concern here for this team comp is the fact that you basically have two Pokemon on your team that you kind of have to babysit. So how do you fill in for this weakness as that fifth teammate? How do you fill in to make this team stick together like glue? Like how do you glue the pieces together long enough for these two Pokemon to pop off? Okay, that's the main goal here. The only answer to this is to pick a Pokemon that can kind of, I wouldn't say one-man army, but can get individual value alone without needing teammates' helps. So this would be Pokemon like all-rounders, like Lucario's great for this. He doesn't really need help from teammates. Mr. Mime, I would argue, is also pretty good for this because he doesn't really need teammates to get value. I've seen Zeraoras go in lane. I'm not a Zeraora player, so I don't know how good that is. With the limited knowledge that I have, I would say it's possible to have Zeraora because Zero is kind of like an attacker, to be honest. Because my main goal here is that I want to play Pokemon that can be both aggressive but also play defensively if they need to. That's my main thing. And most Pokemon can't really do that. Maybe Crustle. Crustle could probably fit in that category, to be honest. I think these would be good picks. I wouldn't put Machamp here just because Machamp is kind of like Garchomp, where like Machamp needs a little bit of time early game to pop off. The only difference between Machamp and Garchomp is that Machamp pops off faster, like sooner than Garchomp does. That's the only difference. I think I'm good. I think I'm good with these picks for now. So these would be like my potential candidates for this type of team comp. All of these Pokemon that I listed up here have that capability where they can still kind of score on their own. They can still provide offensive value to potentially get a pick or at least steal wild Pokemon from the enemy team. Okay, they can kind of get in and out of a situation a lot easier. That's kind of the idea between these picks right here, is that they don't really need their teammates to still do their job or get value. Some of my matches were still get potion users. Some people actually just like potion, believe it or not. I actually have someone in my Discord who generally likes playing. He likes the jungle. He typically jungles. He tends to play like a Zeraora, Greninja in jungle most of the time. He's pretty much a jungle main. And he loves playing potion. He loves using potion, despite he has all the battle items, but he likes using potion mostly because he argues that it just helps him stay alive while he's flanking, probably because he doesn't always have the time to actually stay at goalposts as often as the laners do, so having the extra heals from potion helps him out. And potion has a short cooldown. I think it's only 30 seconds too, so he can heal himself pretty often with it. So I see the argument for potion. Potion is better on attackers and speedsters too, just because attackers and speedsters have the lowest HP stats in the whole game. So potion actually has more value on attackers and speedsters than it does on the other roles. It's not as good on all-rounders, supports, and tanks, just because they have such high HP thresholds that potion feels like it barely gives you anything. Is my thought process kind of making sense for you guys though? In terms of what picks I would go, depending on what your team is playing. You're more so picking the Pokemon to fill in the weaknesses of your team. You're not picking a role that is missing on your team. You're picking the Pokemon that is there to fill in the weaknesses.